Here it is. We finally did it. It's been a journey. Hello, my name is Farrak, and with my commentator, would you like to introduce yourself?
How's everyone doing today? My name is Cinaeth, and we are ready for another Archipelago randomizer today. Are you excited as I am for what we're about to run into?
I am excited to find the most inappropriate locations in the most appropriate locations.
Yeah, so I mean, we can only hope for the absolute worst things to happen to our runners. Do you want to go over a little bit of what we may be seeing?
Well, we are rolling today on a doors seed, so you can expect to walk into rooms and really not be where you think that you should be, or sometimes be someplace where you don't expect to be. Um, we do have one player, Render, running on vanilla doors, but both xlivs and Luna will be on crossed doors at intensity level 3. So we can expect some very odd screen transitions at the very least. We can probably
Yeah,
also
so
expect some unfortunate enemies to be encountered. Do we know if boss or not boss, but enemy shuffle has been activated?
so I'm looking through the settings right now, and I don't see Boss Shovel on Professor Renderer. Um, no Boss Shuffle or Enemy Shuffle there. And nope, no enemy or boss shuffle today.
All right. Well, then here's hoping we run into a whole lot of convenient and easy to kill enemies.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're just getting set up and ready to go here.
Yeah, working out the last few kinks as we get started here. But yeah, so as Farrak was saying, we could be going into Hyrule Castle and end up over in Pod, and then go through a couple of rooms in Pod, and then end up over in Eastern Palace, or we could end up over on the mountain, or you get the idea. Things just get really crazy really fast.
Absolutely. And the crazier it gets, the harder it can be to keep track of things. You'll notice I just threw a link into chat, tracker. If you ever want to get that link again, just use !tracker. That will give you the link to the tracker being used for today's game. So you can follow along with who has what items and what keys and what the last time they were doing anything was. And it looks like we do have xlivs with a total item count of 249, implying that key drop shuffle has been turned on.
All right, so we got a mirror. Oh, and they get to send items to each other too. So this is not only them playing a randomizer and finding their own items, they're also finding each other's items that have been completely mixed up between each other's games with logic settings all applied to it.
Yeah, we somehow found a way to take A Link to the Past, a 1991 video game on a Super Nintendo, and put it on the internet and make it multiplayer. Shoutouts to everybody involved with that. I can tell you from personal experience, there's a lot of hex code that is really, really annoying without documentation. Looks like Uncle had a sword for Luna, which is convenient to be able to swipe your enemies.
Yeah, so you're going to be seeing a couple of cool tricks that our runners are doing here. Obviously, we have fake flippers. We went and checked the hobo under the bridge over on Professor Renderer's screen, and we're able to do a setup where we can jump into the water, get fake flippers again, and keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep swimming.
Swimming, even when it's out of logic. And I do know that some of our players intend today to use a few glitches. There was some talk of some overworld glitches, so we can be excited to see some unusual behavior for Link. Although around this community, some of that stuff can be pretty expected these days.
And Professor Renderer finds a moon pearl on Zora Ledge. There are some tricks that you can get to that. So it looks like Renderer is going to be setting up a trick right now to try and get onto that.
You see X on the upper right-hand side here, setting up for a houlihan. The way that works is you leave from Sanctuary, walk to the right, go into the small cave, walk out, go down to the left-hand side of the pier, jump into the water 3 times, and then walk to the left, pick up the bush, and drop it in the hole. You can walk out with a cool 226 rupees, which is quite convenient because many players will then follow it up and go over to Commentators town, where they will have enough money to purchase from the bottle merchant and potentially buy bombs from a shop if necessary. Although in X's case, we might not see that. Again, with that varied item count, I wonder whether it's key drop shuffle or whether the number of shop shuffle slots just so happens to align that way.
And to answer chat's question, you are correct. The escape is actually happening through randomized doors.
Yeah, it can make for some really interesting setups. I've had that happen where you'll walk through part of GT and part of other dungeons, and it can get really complex. It can be very, very long, and end up with just a lot of checks. You'll see that there are 11 checks in that escape. They've got those compasses item count turned on. And you'll see, of course, that because a mirror is not guaranteed to occur early on inside of door seeds, our players do have what I believe we refer to as a mirror map, which just essentially acts as if it was a mirror to allow them to get back to the entrance of a dungeon rather quickly if the door situation were to be very inconvenient or perhaps trap them in a way that was unexpected.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry, is what it's typically called.
Yeah, so I mean, our players who are doing cross doors here, they are going to have to kind of figure out where in the dungeons they're going. They won't be able to easily do some of the major glitches that you might be familiar with, such as a YBA through a door to go from one dungeon to another dungeon, unless they know enough about the map area that they're in, because yeah, doing those is always fun.
We had Luna here just find some boots in that escape for X. Early boots, always a hype moment. I mean, you gotta go fast.
And it looks like xLives also has boots, although that was the boots that Luna just found, I think.
Those are the boots that were just sent, yeah.
Yep.
All right. I always love watching players navigate Doors seeds. I've only played a couple of Doors games myself, and they are always a significant advancement on the puzzle that the randomizer tends to create on its own. It's really, if you know Link to the Past very well and you can trounce the randomizer at any time, Doors is probably your next step in terms of just finding something interesting and a new way to play the game. It can be quite a journey.
And Doors is a relatively, I would say, newer option in the randomizer. The one that most people probably know about is actually Entrance Randomizer, where it takes every entrance in the game that's in the overworld and mixes them up. Door Randomizer will actually take every door in the game and mix them up.
Yeah, it can lead to some really ridiculous puzzles. And you can find dungeons that have very large numbers of checks. Again, escape with 11 checks, but imagine Ganon's tower that only has 2 rooms in it, or an Eastern Palace with 22 checks, right? Things like this can happen.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Door Randomizer is you could get a randomizer that is extremely linear, and you're literally just going from one room to the next, and you're never going backwards. Yeah, Luna's in a weird situation right now on Laser Bridge. Got to fight the Red Beetle. Red Beetle did get knocked down. So let's see where this takes us. On top of Hyrule Castle.
You know, I have to wonder if those. This is a legitimate question, actually. Are those 4 checks in Laser Bridge considered to be in logic? Because there is no mirror shield currently acquired. There's no convenience items, which themselves are never considered to be, I believe, required for anything save for perhaps Fight Cave. Or like you're gonna need tape for same privilege. In terms of Laser Bridge, I think this might actually be in logic. You just have to do some real crafty walking.
So, it does depend on the logic settings of the seed. So the way that these seeds or these YAMLs are rolled depends a lot on not what you can do, but what items grant you access to this location. For example, this you still need a mirror shield in standard logic. Even with cross doors, even with key sanity, even with every other setting you can think of in standard logic, no major glitches, this still requires a mirror shield.
Okay, so we can probably expect then to actually not find very much of use on Laser Bridge, considering it is out of logic. Although the unfortunate receiving of a shield here by Luna, may her frames rest in peace.
But Krebel's in chat clarifying that Archipelago does not have the same basic item placement setting that protects you from Laser Bridge skips. So we're not 100% sure on how the logic, whether it's standard logic or advanced logic, would change what items are required to go through what rooms.
Looks like Luna might be a little stuck here. Has found a room that requires the bow to progress through and doesn't have it just yet, which could mean that you'll find a bow in this dungeon. Could also mean that you just have to come back to it at some point, if that's not part of the necessary path to make it through.
It also means that someone may have Luna's bow, and she's waiting on that person to find the bow for her.
It is also a distinct possibility, yeah. Considering that when you run a standard seed, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe a standard beginning is 3 spheres in terms of generation logic. And people who are running open seeds could have a significant amount of extra checks, especially indoors, before that's found.
Yeah, so this is where Archipelago can get very complicated very quick. You have to think about, okay, doors are throwing in logic, the standard no major logic is throwing in logic, items are throwing in logic, not to mention they don't have their own items. They are sharing their items with 2 other players who are playing their own seeds that are also mixing up logic. So there is a lot going on that you have to think about when it comes to this.
Yeah, I mean, that find is a lot of potential for an early and very long BK mode. We hope not to see that, of course, but the chances of that fairly low, but possible.
Yeah, and as Krebel's pointing out in chat, the Archipelago settings can be set up in such a way that you can't accidentally put yourself into a hard BK mode. So, as you can see, Luna's kind of sitting in place and waiting because she's gone everywhere that she can go in order to progress through her part of the seed. So, I think you're right that at this point, she's stuck and won't be able to go anywhere until there's either a bow or maybe some through that room with the mimics. Now, I guess something that she could do, and I would have to look at that mimic room again to see if it's actually possible, is to mimic clip. Not an easy tech whatsoever, but possible.
Yeah, and what the effect of a mimic clip does is you can move in a certain way that forces the mimics to actually walk outside of the room. And the way that Link to the Past works is, so long as an enemy isn't on the screen, the game says, yeah, it's probably dead. And so if you can just get that mimic to walk far enough off the screen, that door will open.
And Kate Sith clarifying that that specific mimic room is not mimic clippable. So unfortunately, Luna is super stuck here.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate. There was some discussion not super long ago about the potential of altering games such that if you had door turned on, that standard would always be exactly standard. In the same way that if you use Randomizer these days, or if you turn on, I should say, enemy shuffle, and you start with a standard beginning, the enemies in the standard are not changed. So there is thought being put into that. Not sure if that's ever going to come to fruition, or if there's been any further movement on that, but it would be an interesting concept. Personally, I have always been on the side of I guess you could say a little bit of extra brutality. I like to say, hey, you signed up for these settings, you knew this could happen. There are a lot of people who don't think that way, so accessibility is a concern that we obviously need to keep in mind. So
right. So the other thing that I guess Luna could try to do, but I really don't foresee any way of this happening, is having a red potion and then doing a red potion glitch nearby that mimic room, or maybe through one of the doors, in order to do a red YBA and then hopefully force her out of the map in a way that would get her unstuck. But that's going to take extreme knowledge of how red YBA works, how these rooms are linked together, and can you skip it, basically. Not to mention getting a red potion in the first place.
Yeah, and relying on receiving an item at any particular time is always just a tricky proposition in any type of multi-world situation. So, has Luna gone left in this room?
I believe that's where she came from. I could be wrong.
And I should say south. Because I remember when she first walked through, she just went straight on ahead, but maybe I'm wrong. So fun fact, the room that Luna's in, you can actually kill both of those skeletons simultaneously. If you pick up the pot on the north side of that room, or one of the two pots, walk north and let that skeleton drop down, and then walk south back into the center of that room, pick up a pot and let the second skeleton fall while walking to the south. If you then turn north and throw the pot at the following skeleton, the second one, you'll cause him to collapse and kind of fall to the ground, but he'll also be pushed back into the center of that square area. So if you then quickly walk north, place a bomb on that skeleton, and then stand outside of the square to the south, what'll happen is the skeleton that came from the north that you first triggered will kind of jump around in the center there trying to get to you. And it happens to work out with the timing such that if that bomb explodes while one skeleton is destroyed, the game will say, oh, well, I mean, technically speaking, there's a destroyed skeleton in this room, so therefore kill any skeleton that is hit by a bomb. And you can kill both skeletons at the same time.
So another thing that Luna could do here that I'm kind of thinking about is, on this part of Escape, you can jump off of Hyrule Castle and go down into the Uncle area. That could be a new pathway for Luna to use. I don't know if that's a risk that she's willing to take, but I mean, it's another area that I don't think we've been to yet.
I think you're right, actually. Yeah, we haven't seen what's down inside there. That could be very handy. It's always so interesting because there are so many different entrances in this game, especially when you get to places like Turtle Rock and Desert, especially Hyrule Castle, where there are just a lot of ways to get into and around a location. That is absolutely possible, and I don't think we've seen the inside of that yet.
It also looks like Luna's trying to use some bombs to rail clip onto that right side door. And looks like Luna is taking our advice now and dropping down on top of Hyrule here to check out what's in these doors. So let's see where these lead.
Yeah, the worst feeling in the world is to think that you're in DK mode and then just be sitting there waiting and then have someone tell you, like, wait a minute, did you go down over here? And then you just have to do the facepalm moment, like, oh no. Looks like for X, the green pendant is going to be inside of Swamp Palace. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but whatever dungeon the game considers to be Swamp Palace is where we're going to end up finding that. So, interesting. A couple of keys found in there, and it looks like X has universal small keys, as does Luna. Maybe I'm... No, I think that's accurate, yeah. Because they're both on overworld locations and have keys displayed.
I'm kind of wondering what Luna's up to right now, because the uncle area is right there. You can definitely go in from, the front, back, whatever you want to call it. The inverse, how you leave uncle, I guess is the best way to say it.
Yeah, you can chop down the bushes and walk down the stairs, absolutely. I'd have to say, I think that having been in a position like this before, I think she's doing the having herself a walkabout, which is just kind of walking around thinking about, well, did I check this door? Did I check that door? Where did I go? Trying to go over the checklist of places she's been in her head, and sometimes, you just forget that something is accessible to you, and so you assume that, oh, I can't get there, and so you never think about it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Moldorm fall over on Professor Renderer's screen.
Trolldorm strikes again. All players with boots, by the way. Early boots for everyone, which is great. Although I think that Renderer started with boots. But all
you're
players
right.
with boots, according to the tracker, meaning that all the boots have actually been found. So all our players with an early boot start. Very nice. And we, of course, have our eight-eyed Moldorm here.
No matter where you hide, Moldorm will find you. Moldorm has a special set of skills.
One of the tricks you can do to prevent getting knocked off of Moldorm's little platform there is, if you hold in one of the cardinal directions, the opposite direction that Moldorm's trying to push you off, you will never fall. But if you get hit into a diagonal direction and you're falling in one of two locations and you pick the wrong one, you're still going down. So there's a little bit of safety there, but most of the time Moldorm gets his way.
All right, so Luna's back in the Mimic room, seeing if there's any way to Mimic clip here, but as Kate already pointed out, there's no way to clip this Mimic, unfortunately.
Yeah, there's nothing to be done. It's just gonna be stuck for a little while, unless she remembers to hop down and check out Uncle. Which would be a truly cruel irony if he had the bow.
Even if this was the room you could Mimic clip in, this is not how you do it.
Have we missed something interesting here? Like, when you begin in Standard, even on doors, I think you have to check Uncle. Because the only place that you can go in Hyrule Castle that leads you anywhere from falling is the sewer. Or into Uncle's little, like, what is that, a sub-sewer? Where is he? He falls down, but it doesn't go anywhere. It looks like a sewer, but it's not the sewers. Where is it?
It's called the Secret Passage.
I suppose Zelda does call it a secret passage, doesn't she? Well, looks like we're getting our wish. We're checking it out. And a quick turnaround.
Okay,
appears
so
it
Luna
wasn't
has
back
been
then.
here. Yeah, so that mimic room might be the only direction that Luna can go, and unfortunately that requires a bow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sometimes you just get stuck like this, and this is one of those treacherous moments. You know, like we said, if you start in standard using doors, you signed up for this.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, we have X walking through what appears to be Thieves Town, but it could change at any moment. And now he's in the sewers. Was that a triple kill with the hammer on those rats?
Okay, so we, the commentators, have been given a little bit of a spoiler. We do know where things are. I will not say exactly where, but I will say that Luna's bow is accessible right now.
Now you got me curious. I'm scrolling through here to take us a look.
All right, so what else do we have going on here while Farrak takes a look through the spoiler on the little tasty bit of information I gave?
Yes, I see it now. It is very accessible. In fact, you might call it a Sphere 1 check.
That's a Sphere 0 check. I hate to say it, it's a Sphere 0 check.
They're used pretty interchangeably. I have personally been berated for using the term Sphere 0 because I don't know, but I've never heard people talk about Sphere 2 or Sphere 3 commonly. But everybody will talk about Sphere 0 and Sphere 1. I think we mean the same thing.
Yeah, true. So what we're talking about, for anyone who's brand new to Link to the Past Randomizer, Sphere, we'll call it 1, is open no matter what, regardless of what items you've picked up. It assumes that you have money. It assumes that you have ammo. Ammo being bombs and arrows. Obviously, if you don't have a bow to use the arrows, that doesn't count. But it assumes you have rupees and it assumes you have bombs. If you have those two things, think of every location that you can open with those two items. That is your Sphere 1.
Oh, Kate Sith dropping some interesting lore here. Kate says Sphere 0 are the items that you start with, which is nothing, essentially. But again,
I guess that depends
if you
on
have bombs and money and arrows, right?
Yeah.
So, when we talk about Sphere 1 or Sphere 0, what we're talking about typically is it's going to consist of typically things that are in Kakariko Town. You're talking about the two items available inside of I almost called it Skull Woods, but the Lost Woods. You can get the item that's inside the dam and the item that is sunken outside the dam. You can also get Agina, the item he has in his cave. You can get several items inside of Eastern Palace, including, I believe, the map and compass chest. Yep, I think that's right. And then, let's see, there's also Sahasrah's closet. Inside his house, you can bomb that wall, get those three items. Let me think here. I want to say that's... Oh, and then, of course, Uncle. And the chest inside of Hyrule Castle. Along with the first chest in the prison. You can't necessarily get past that because you might need a weapon in order to kill the guard, but that chest does count. Of course, we see a renderer here falling through the world, ending up somewhere else. Fun glitches.
Right, so that's Sphere 1. Sphere 2 is as soon as you pick up an item somewhere, Sphere 2 is unlocked by any items that you find in Sphere 1.
Right, so let's say in Sphere 1 you find a bow and a hammer and a glove. everything that all 3 of those combined give you access to is considered to be Sphere 2. And it just goes on from there. I have seen seeds with 27 spheres, and I have seen seeds that had 4.
Yeah, and I've seen seeds with like over 30 spheres, but those are usually Key Sanity SMZ3 combo randomizers.
Yeah, where things can just get crazy complicated, yeah. I don't think I've ever seen a solely linked to the past seed that had that many spheres. Save maybe for like the Async, which has 100 quadrillion spheres.
Oh, and Bright Beginner is bringing up a good point. If you go back to that Turtle Rock Big Chest area, you could try to boots hover across that pit.
Very true, although I don't believe that hovering is considered in logic in any circumstance.
Right. All right, so let's take a quick rundown of the items that we have thrown out there. So we found the book. Professor Renderer currently has the book. Professor Renderer currently has the boots, the flippers, and 2 of the 4 bottles. xlives currently has the hammer, hook, boots, moon pearl, the lamp, both rods, but that is it. And then Luna is sitting on a mirror, boots, moon pearl, shovel, and 2 bottles.
Absolutely. You know, this just looks like very standard progression for a progression balanced seed. So we can expect that they'll be moving steadily forward as we go on. And hopefully nobody puts off their Sphere 1 checks for too long. Although we can tell that the person responsible, and we won't say who, has avoided something. And I'm going to be honest, I have once or twice accidentally missed this. Not because I was like being dumb or anything, but because like sometimes what'll happen is you can walk up to a chest and try to open it, and you'll receive an item just as you're pressing A, and you'll think to yourself, oh, got it, and then you walk out. I don't think that's the case in this circumstance, but it has happened. So sometimes, you know, just through technical circumstances, you can accidentally miss a chest. But oh, and there is the final moon pearl being found for Professor Render coming from X.
Meanwhile, Luna is taking a death up at her area, having to start over from the Zelda escape. Oh, and Luna now has a hook shot, so Luna could explore what's on the other side of that bridge.
And very much should. No guarantees that that will actually get her out of escape, but it's definitely something to do, which is desirable in all cases.
And you may see Luna doing a lot of backtracking and checking. I'm not sure what's going on right now, but yeah, we're just trying to find exactly where to go.
Ken actually asking an interesting question in chat. Looking at Luna's screen, why does it show that there are 5 keys and a number 4 underneath it? I know that this is a function of doors in some way. I want to say that that is the number of... I want to say it's the number of chests remaining. Specifically chests, I think. I could be very, very wrong. I actually don't know. You know what? I straight don't know what it means. Never mind. I'm just guessing. I know I've seen it. It's been explained to me before. I just don't remember what it means.
And Link is also, or not Link, someone was asking, hold on, I'm trying to see who it was now. Oh yeah, Link was asking, is Luna trying to do an EG glitch? So Luna is in a location in the game where you can enable some exploration glitch. Exploration glitch lets you move throughout the map without any restrictions whatsoever. Doors doesn't affect you. The map doesn't affect you. You can go just about anywhere you want with EG. I don't know if our runners are currently purposely not doing that in order to keep the game interesting and show exactly what these seeds can do. Because obviously with an EG glitch, you can do a lot to the game that you probably shouldn't do when you're breaking it completely.
Luna's here experimenting with different ways to maybe try to kill that mimic, but there's just no way. You just need a bow. Ooh, sending out the bee. Trying those new strats. Unfortunately, there's just nothing to be done.
Does require a bow.
It's a tough circumstance. You know, Trinex hard requires an ice rod. Red mimics hard require a bow.
The frustration.
On it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna put my little spicy commentary here on why the bow hasn't been found yet.
Lay it on me.
I'm gonna say that it hasn't been found because the person who needs to find it is currently trying to find every location that they can do with the items that they have, if that makes any sense. And the one location they actually need to go to does not require any special tricks.
I think I see what you're getting at here. Should we? I think we should let chat in on the secret. I mean, I feel like if the players are paying attention here, they can only help them.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We're not just giving out hints for free. You know, this is something that.
Yeah, have they gotten 40 items? Are they using the exclamation point hint yet?
Well, no hints have been used yet. If you look at the tracker, you can see all of the hints that the players have used, and so far, nothing has been asked for. I'm sure Luna would have used one, but in this case, there just won't be enough hint points available, so that's going to be right out. So the thing that we know that nobody else does is we know where Luna's bow is, and it is in Sahasrah's closet in Professor Renderer's world. And our working theory here is that Renderer is just trying to do as much as he can with the items that he has, but has just kind of overlooked that where he needs to go simply doesn't require any tricks. And he's thinking about all the things that he can do with those items, but he doesn't need the items.
Yeah, so Professor Renderer having the boots can boot clip just about anywhere in the overworld on the game. And Sahasrah's closet, really, you don't go there unless you have the bow yourself and you're planning on doing Eastern Palace. So that was my working theory of why Professor, he has the bow, he does not have the lamp, but the lamp's not required for Eastern. So, I mean, no reason not to go to Eastern, except that it's currently not a glitched area.
Well, I suppose that depends on your lamp accessibility settings, but generally speaking, I think the majority of people, at least that I interact with, have a pretty good grasp of how to get through Eastern without a lamp. Thankfully, the dark rooms there are not extremely complicated. But yeah, I think you're right in this circumstance.
So to answer Krebble's question in chat, Professor Renderer does know that this is a door seed and that the overworld glitch logic was nullified. That was actually part of the setup before this, was making sure that Professor could start with boots, because Professor really wanted to do overworld glitches, even though doing those overworld glitches are completely out of logic.
Yeah, it was a conversation had beforehand, so Professor is aware, yes. Aware of that logical limitation created by doors. Ooh, that is a really high fee to transfer those rupees coming from Zora right there. see X opting out of that.
Okay, so I am looking in chat right now to see where the other progressive bow is for Luna, and if it is accessible. No spoilers, but the short answer is... it would be available if xlives knew how to get over there. Both bows for Luna are available. Whether or not they're in logic is a question. One of them is definitely in logic. The other one, I would say, is technically not in logic. Yeah, so as we've been saying, Professor is currently completely out of logic right now. I don't know if this is logic kind of getting away from Professor, because the part of the thing with multi-worlds like this is you have to communicate with your teammates what items you've sent are in logic and what items you've sent are out of logic. So with Professor sending all these items that are out of logic, that could be sending xlives to check things that are out of logic, and then obviously Luna's, just completely stuck, digging every single spot in Hyrule Castle right now because there's nothing else that she can do.
Yep. Sorry about that. I was handling something here on the side. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're stuck like that, there's just not much you can do. You're just stuck.
But the runners have come in and officially taken a white flag on this. Not sure where to find the bow, and have gotten their hint. Professor Renderer is officially going straight towards Sasha Closet to go get that bow.
At blazing speed.
So I'm guessing whatever was across the pit in Turtle Rock ended up not being anything if Luna's this stuck. Oh, and gets a lamp on top of it to add insult to injury.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, if it's presuming that it's part of the escape sequence, that'll get you through the dark room on the way out.
All right, so everyone pray for Luna that whatever. Oh, so even if you could have clipped past that mimic, this area is hard require bow.
hard require, absolutely. That's a double whammy. Our nice slow cutscene here was the wall moved away.
So we'll have to pray for Luna that whatever room comes up next isn't hard required. But hey, we're out of escape. There it is.
Woo, we made it.
Chat, let's get a round of applause for Luna, who's finally dropped off the princess with the priest.
They're too kind. Alright, so this game can officially begin.
Yeah, definitely. So,
sorry, go ahead.
Luna is currently very behind on item checks, but has tons and tons to check in the overworld. So hopefully going to find some progression for anyone else who could be sitting in BK. So I believe when xlives came into chat, xlives was saying that he is now in BK. So now we get to see the struggles of xlives, who's checked every single green location on his map and is now waiting for items. So let's go over what xlives currently has. So xlives has a hammer, a hookshot, the boots, the flippers, the pearl, a blue ring, the lamp, both rods, and ether medallion. So where can xlives go, and where cannot xlives go?
Given that it is a Doors seed, I imagine there are still a couple of things that are probably more difficult checks that are still elusive. Just because your map tracker doesn't show anything green doesn't mean that you shouldn't be checking out those yellow and orange locations. Very often, there's just stuff inside of a dungeon or a door that you didn't have a key for at the time that you can probably go back for. A lot of stuff like that can really just kind of get in the way. But we see Luna doing all this, all those traditional Sphere 1 checks, just checking out everything inside of Cactown, probably going to go down and look at the maze game, that kind of thing. So you can expect to see a lot of early items coming in from there. In fact, I would be surprised if she didn't just clear almost the entirety of the overworld coming up soon. Oh, and there are some backup boots for X, the vanity boots.
So Crubble pointing out that xlives really is waiting for a Dark World entry, either having Aga 1 access or gloves in order to get Dark World entry, which is definitely correct. Now, technically, you can get Dark World entry with what xlives has right now. The real question is xlives willing to break logic in order to get that Dark World access?
Can he? What does he have that allows him?
So if you go up to the mountain and use the boots after the Dark World, you can clip right off the mountain and get access to all the Dark World stuff.
Oh, that's right, DMD. That's Mountain Descent.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot about that. Yes, logically, X is very much locked out of Dark World. Has no glove to speak of, no sword to get him into fight Aghanim, and yeah, it's just a lockout. And heck, no mirror to even get out of it.
Yeah, and even if Doors was being mean right now and was preventing xlives from going up the mountain, you could do a Death Mountain ascent using your boots, and then do a Death Mountain descent in the Dark World using your boots.
We do love our acronyms. Luna getting the successful Kuko clip. Showing it off by grabbing that chicken out of the wall.
Yeah, so there are three things that can happen when you throw that chicken through the wall in Chicken Hut. Either the chicken will bounce off the wall and nothing happens, the chicken stays in the room with you. The chicken can get clipped into the wall but stays in between the layers and is neither in the room with you or anywhere else. It's just kind of running around in between the worlds. It's kind of like in a void. It can go completely through the door and then it's in the other room. Or you can throw the chicken and now you're holding nothing while your hands are in the air.
Call that hype mode. Yeah, I think the most common outcome of that is to throw the chicken and have it be somewhere in the middle, right? The chicken partially clips, it can walk freely between both rooms, but it's really not in either state. It's a quantum chicken, It's you observe it here and therefore it's in this room, but you can't necessarily touch it,
So do we call that Schrodinger's chicken?
Schrodinger's Kuko, yes. I know it's commonly called chicken clip, but the chickens in all Legend of Zelda games are called Kukos. Cucoo.
Mm-hmm. Kate Sith coming in saying that the holding nothing in the air with your hands up is called the Duck of Doom.
Oh, the Duck of Doom. All right. You know better than to pick up a duck in the dungeon, says Kate. Yes, we've all played Wind Waker. Remember that guy in Wind Waker, the dude who's supposed to give you the hints in the dungeons? You find him underneath a pot, then he just pesters you for the whole rest of your existence in that game. I hate that guy.
So funny story. I have only played Wind Waker up to the first dungeon.
Oh, so you don't know the obnoxiousness there. Fair enough. Wind Waker is an excellent game. You really should put it on your list at some point.
Oh yeah, I did put it on my list. I just haven't finished it yet.
That's fair. That's fair. In fairness, too, it's actually sort of difficult to play these days. Either you need to get a GameCube, pull it out of your closet, or you need to grab the Wind Waker HD, which honestly, for somebody who like really hated the Wii U, that was one of 2 things on the Wii U that was actually any good. Both of those things on the Wii U that were any good were the Zelda remakes. Anyway, back to Link to the Past. We see Renderer again running around the mountain. Just looking like we're going to be jumping off some inappropriate cliffs here. X still missing a sword, which it's not the end of the world. You know, it's got a hammer, so offensive capability is not for lacking, but a sword is just very convenient. You know, in terms of just running around, you can dash through bushes. You know, you can. You actually cannot do the hammer trick on the hammer pegs without a sword. That is necessary, so you can't just dash them all down.
Definitely. So, for anyone who's been hanging out with us and listening to us go on about different games and especially all the different options in this randomizer, first off, please go give each of these runners a huge follow for making this happen today for this showcase. Luna, Leka, xlivesforever, and Professor Renderer. Make sure you're giving them each a huge follow and check out their channels. They're great content creators on this on Twitch, and obviously given their free time in order to show us how terrible or how good these multi-worlds can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And additional shoutouts to just everybody who's working kind of behind the scenes who don't get to be in the spotlight. You know, Tyler for all the organization, all the developers who work on this, blood, sweat, tears, and money going into it left and right. There is a very large community working on and around this game, just all because we want people to have a great time, and we hope that you're having a good time here tonight.
Definitely. And for anyone who is brand new to the channel and not quite sure what Archipelago is, so I believe the vision of Archipelago is to take all randomizers and put them together.
So I can actually give you a little bit of insight onto that. Archipelago was born out of, originally, the Link to the Past randomizer. We'll do a little bit of a history lesson. After a while of that randomizer being around and evolving in a few different ways, some people got together and worked on making it a multiplayer game, multi-world, which is, you're seeing kind of the core of that here tonight. Just taking Link to the Past and making it playable by many people sharing items between each other's worlds. A pretty monumental task all on its own. Archipelago's goal is to take not only Link to the Past, but any other game that has any means of having a randomizer to it that has some form of logical progression and hooking those all together. So we've already gotten Factorio successfully integrated with this. Minecraft has some very, very promising, if not well-tested, examples of working so far as well, and there are other games in the works. So the goal of Archipelago is so that you can not just play Link to the Past with each other, but play many different games and still be able to send items to each other to help each other progress through your games.
Yeah, I believe one of the ones that's currently being worked on right now is the Hollow Knight randomizer combined with this nonsense.
There is work being done on that, yes. I believe there is an engine upgrade for Hollow Knight that's currently happening, and that is causing a little bit of a delay on that front, but yes, work is absolutely being done.
When you try to die to the Gibdos and you have a fairy, so you have to release the fairy, and the fairy runs into you and you get full life. So you have to keep dying to Gibdos.
Yeah, people do love to try to death warp to get out of a dungeon very quickly by simply running out of health, which very possible to do in this game, but sometimes you just get sent an item, or you realize you have a fairy, or anything like that that just prevents you from doing it. My personal favorite was I was once trying to death warp out of Ganon's tower because I was just very deep in it. And I think I had 17 hearts, or heart containers, and I was down into my last 1 or 2 hearts. And just as I was about to die, somebody sent me Sankheart and just refilled me completely. and so just had to stand there and get walked into a whole bunch of times.
Mhm. And to commentate on what Crubble's saying in chat, so knowing that Hollow Knight Randomizer is eventually coming to Archipelago has inspired me to actually play the vanilla game for the first time. I have not actually played Hollow Knight yet.
That's exciting. I hope you have an excellent... In fact, I know you're going to have an excellent time. Hollow Knight is such a fun game. That's a Metroidvania done right.
Yeah, I've heard only good things about it so far, so I'm looking forward to getting through the game.
Yeah. So it looks like at this point every player has a bow, which is very handy. And at some point, Professor Renderer also found a fire rod, or at least received one. Every player also having access to a bottle. So a little bit of safety available for everyone. And if you're familiar with how to do it, a little bit of fake fluting, considering that nobody has a flute. For those curious about what a fake flute is, if you have a bottle of blue goo and you screen transition and drink that bottle on the same frame, the game will think that you have fluted. Looks like Luna has just discovered that there's a blue cane on the lumberjack ledge. So that's going to put Aghanim in the back of her mind. Now, whether a blue cane ends up being required for anything, I mean, it won't be, but whether anybody ends up actually needing it, asking her to go get it, unlikely. But somebody's going to know that there's going to be a little bit less of a convenience to them. The only thing we know is that it's not Luna's blue cane because she already has it.
And having a bottle in hand, Luna could set up a extra bit of shenanigans to go get that blue cane if she really, really wanted to. I don't foresee anyone trying to do it, especially because it's a blue cane. But there is a way to go get that without killing Aghablon.
Like Magic Man on the Mountain had a wake for Professor Renderer. It's always interesting to see what that old man gets lost in that cave with. Have you ever seen him get lost in that cave holding somebody else's lamp? I mean, you really have to wonder about that man's his sense of self-preservation.
Hey, man, you don't want to use someone else's lamp. You don't know where it's been.
Yeah, is that really oil in there, or?
Oh, and going back to the bottle transition and doing fake flute, we like to call that the melted flute in the Go Mode podcast.
Okay, I didn't know that. You know, to this day, I have yet to actually listen to that podcast. It is recommended to me nonstop all the time by everyone, and I still just haven't found the time.
Yeah, Go Mode podcast is good stuff, but I don't want to promote them too much other than go check them out.
Fair enough. This room that Luna's walking through right now, I, for probably 2 solid years, did not know that it was possible to go through that room and not take damage. I thought it was mandatory. Turns out I was wrong. Here on Luna's screen, this is definitely not what you expect to see when you go north inside of Ganon's tower. And now we're in Hera. You gotta love a good doors seed. Really just shuffles your brain around.
Mm-hmm. So I believe xlives is still in a BK mode. I'm tempted to go look at the spoiler and see what items are where that could get xlives unstuck.
Yeah, really, anything that would grant access to Dark World, and that would either be a Master Sword or better, or those Titan mitts. And if he's got everything on progressive, that's going to be, 2 requirements in either direction. Although, actually, X does have a hammer, so a single glove would be sufficient. I'm not sure what glitches X is comfortable performing, but even access to the mountain is pretty restricted right now.
All right. So I'm going to play the tease here. I have looked, and I want to say that xlivesforever's progression is in a very, very early progression area.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. There's some administrative reading that need to be done.
Oh, the progression item for xlives is in a very early area, as in accessible right now and has been since the beginning of the game.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What has happened now? I mean, you can lay it on us. You know, we're all knowing. You know, this chat can know anything that it wants as long as they're not backseating the gamers.
So, if I'm reading this correctly, this says that King Zora, in Professor Renderer's game, is holding the power gloves for xlivesforever.
Uh-oh. Go take a look here. Yep, you are reading that accurately. Yes, sir. You know what's interesting about that? There's one line below that we see that Zora's ledge for Professor Renderer has xliv's moon pearl, and X does have a moon pearl, which means that at the time Renderer must have walked right past Zora, probably because he didn't have the money to buy it, and so just didn't bother to check, and has now probably written that space off in his mind, you know, because sometimes if you go to a place and you just don't have it, I mean, I write off King Zora probably a third of the time. Just if you've been there, your brain just says, oh, I've been to that place already. It doesn't store whether or not you've checked it. It just says, oh yeah, I've been there. There's nothing. What? Zora? Already got the moon pearl. We're good.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what's happened is, you know, you went to check that area, you know that you've been there, you don't necessarily want to go back even if it's still marked on your map because it's really out of the way. Or if you're not using a tracker, you've been to that area, so you've written it off because you've been to that area.
We did see another sword found for Luna underneath a pot in X's world. Weird place for a sword, but you know, we'll take it.
Yeah, so that's another setting that we can set up is items under pots. So it's called Pot Shuffle. It takes all the items and can put them under any pot that normally has an item under it. And you can even make it so that the pot that normally has items under it changes locations in the room that you're looking for it.
Yeah, I think the way that works is it shuffles all of the pots that are on your super tile and mixes around what or where the item that you expect to find is. Typically, there's your keys, which is why it's called key drop shuffle. I think pot shuffle just mixes around what like which pots have the keys underneath them, and key drop shuffle not only does that, but also switches around, you know, just those keys with other items in the game. And those two options function independently as well, so you don't need to have key drop shuffle in order for pot shuffle to work.
And it looks like either Professor Renderer has been made wise of our discovery, or has realized that Zora's still open and now has the money to go pay the fish.
Either way, we're not sad to see Zora get paid. As always, we want nothing more than progression.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why I like throwing out a spicy hint here or there. Just, you know, if we're starting to see players get stuck, obviously we want to make sure that they're running smoothly, able to do what they can do, and, you know, make this a fun seed for everyone.
Oh, I'm all about it. Let's keep this thing going.
Oh.
Oh?
Luna was checking Zora, not Renderer.
Ah.
I had switched players, that's all.
Huh. You know, I did see that X has received that Power Glove, so... I'm pretty sure it had to be Renderer who checked Zora.
Oh yeah, you're right, they're probably both... Wait, no, because in the tracker, X doesn't have the Power Glove yet.
It does for me.
Oh, now it does, it just updated.
Silly internet. Mixing up all the bits. Who wrote this tracker anyway? Who did this website?
So, I mean...
The double skeleton kill.
I do want to quickly pause here and give a huge shout out to my co-commentator Farrak for joining me on this journey. It's been an interesting journey so far through this seed of, I would call this the seed of calamity right now.
What are you talking about? This has been nothing but smooth sailing the entire time. Nothing has gone wrong. Everything is perfect. We got the reverse exit from desert here on the screen. I love going through dungeons backwards as a result of this, because you really end up just not needing to do... It makes so many rooms a lot faster. The game is designed so that, you know, it's harder for you to do a puzzle, to open something up to allow you to go forward, but when you come in the exit, it's just, you just walk right out the entrance, you know?
Mm-hmm. Question from chat. Can we have crowd control multi-world? Technically, you could have crowd control for one player in a multi-world, and it would work just fine. But that crowd control is not going to affect any other player in that multi-world because of the way that Warp World has set up their crowd control. Could it eventually happen? I don't know.
Sure. I look forward to your pull request.
Oh yeah, and speaking of pull requests, so the way that this is done is the hard work, sweat, and tears by everyone in the community. Anyone can go into the GitHub, and if you know a little bit of code, you want to donate some of your time, you have an idea, obviously reach out to the people who are currently working on it and say, hey, I have this idea, and I have some code I know how to do. Is this something do you think that I could try to implement? And you fork your own thing, show that it works, and show it back to the community who's currently working on it, and who knows, your thing could get approved.
Yeah, and you know, if you have like a big bold idea, you want to get something working in the multi-world, it's a lot. You're going to have a lot better luck getting any traction with it if you've already done a little bit of work with it. If you come to somebody and say, hey, I had this idea, I like tried to do some stuff, here's like a little bit of code that I had, I was working with it, I couldn't get it to work, but I'm curious about what I could do with this. Because you've already got something there, and there's already some direction to it, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get extra traction, or get any extra help, or get any extra, get the ball rolling, as opposed to coming to somebody and saying, hey, I had this idea, but I haven't done any work or really thought too much about it, would you please make it happen, And we're not going to shut you down immediately, but if there's already something there, it's a lot easier for us to look at it and say, oh, this interacts with this and it interacts with this. It's a lot easier for us to look at that and say, oh, here are some pointers and things to think about when you're writing this code, and that can be very helpful.
So I want to say that all three of our players are now in a point of, I would call this a soft go mode. meaning that you're able to go to just about any area you want in the game. There might be a few areas here and there that you can't get to, but other than that, I mean, you can basically explore most of the items in your seed and, you know, go find items that other people need.
You know, I would point out that X and Luna don't yet have their Titan mitts. And as somebody who has been without Titan mitts for quite a long time in seeds, I can tell you that at some point they do become very limiting. There are just a lot of things that you can't quite do without them. There's also that nobody has a flute yet, and so Misery Mire in its entirety is not available. Have we, I'll say it this way, have the players been made aware of their goals yet? Or I should say, have discovered their own goals yet?
I don't believe so, but speaking of gloves, xlives just found a Titan's Mitts and sent it to Luna, so we do have a Titan's Mitts now for one of our players.
Okay, that is good news. I have been looking here at the goals for our players, and I can tell you that I won't say who, but one of them is on a 7/7 Ganon. It looks like we have another one who is on a 5/5 goal for crystals, and then our final player is on a 4/7. So that'll be 4 required for Ganon, 7 required for GT crystal gold.
It's kind of interesting that the first number is Ganon and the second number is Ganon's Tower. You would think it's the other way around.
I think you're right. I think most people are concerned with what do I need in order to kill Ganon before they're concerned with what do I need to get into Ganon's Tower. And I think if you had asked that question a year and change ago, people would have gotten behind you. But because crystals are now randomized and GT isn't required anymore, people care more about how do I finish the game instead of how do I get into the place that has a ton of checks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Kate Sith pointing out exactly what you're talking about, that the GT requirement can be completely ignored. So what we're talking about with GT requirement, and you can even set this up in your seed when you roll it with Archipelago, is normally in the vanilla game, you have to kill Aghanim 2 in order to bust through the pyramid, drop down through the pyramid, and be able to even fight Ganon. That is usually required. With the way that these seeds are set up, you can actually set it up so that Aga 2 is actually not required in order to get into the pyramid. The pyramid could already be open. There are also other ways to get into the pyramid to fight Ganon that would require some glitch knowledge, so you don't actually need to fight Aga 2. You could also use some glitch knowledge in order to go directly to Aga 2 without actually traversing through Ganon's Tower. There's another glitch that allows you to go from the front door of Ganon's Tower right to the back door, and then you can just go through the big key door in order to fight Aga 2.
Looks like Luna just discovered that goal of 4 crystals for Ganon. Doing that check of the map to see, all right, what could I do the quickest to get this thing over with?
Yeah, like I said, at this point in the game, it turns into what dungeons do you beat first? Okay, I got a question for you. Are you a believer of clear all the overworld checks you can before doing dungeons, or are you a believer of clear as many dungeons as you can?
So the way I like to play it is I'll do every logical check available to me. And the order that I tend to do that in is convenience. And so a lot of times that comes down to kind of reading the scene. If the first item you get in Sewer is a bow, I'm going to Eastern, you know? But if I don't get anything of particular interest, then I'm going to do all the overworld checks before I go to Eastern, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to go for quantity of checks, generally speaking. If I can just get 5 checks here, but 3 checks there, I'm going for the 5 first.
Sure.
unless the seed has told me otherwise, right? So if there are only in that scenario, if I'm choosing between Eastern and Kakariko Town, and I got a bow in a standard opening sequence, I'm going to Eastern first because the seed told me, hey, there's probably something in here that you need, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, where I will prioritize dungeons that I can full clear over doing overworld checks.
And typically, I don't think that's really because the dungeons are more valuable. I think it's because they have more checks, typically. Most overworld checks, aside from Sphere Zeros, Sphere 1s, are one-offs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have our official first hint. Luna has done a hint to look for the red cane, and it looks like Professor Renderer's red cane is located in Ganon's Tower compass room, bottom right. And the way that Luna has to get to that Ganon's Tower item is through Swamp Palace.
You might say everybody loves a good Swamp Palace with the whole left-hand side thing, but these days in the door randomization world, no dungeon is what it seems to be.
Right, you are. So Luna actually could do Swamp Palace, but needs a way to drain the dam. So if the dam entrance doesn't actually go to the dam switch, then we gotta find where that dam switch is before we. And I know that's a weird way of saying that. Now that I just said it.
Actually, I believe the way that works is if the dungeon that you need in order to, or I'll say it this way, if the entrance to Swamp Palace does in fact lead to Swamp Palace, then you need to drain the dam. If that is not the case, if the entrance to Swamp Palace leads to anywhere else, the dam is always automatically drained in the Dark World. I'm sure somebody in chat will correct me if I'm wrong on that one.
And Link is picking up what I was accidentally saying in commentary before I started laughing at myself.
Oh yeah, that damn switch. Although if we're being technical about it, I think it's a damn lever. You step on a switch, you pull a lever, you know. I always enjoyed when you stun certain enemies. If they have animations to them, they get stuck in the middle of that animation. So you can just stun a guy who's got his chain like swung out to the side and it just freezes there. Gravity be damned.
Physics be damned. Oh, so here's a little thing that I just noticed Luna do back in that previous room in GT. There is a fire snake that was hanging out by the door. There's actually only one hitbox on those fire snakes. It's actually on the head of the fire snake. The rest of the fire snake is just a cartoon that does absolutely nothing to you that you can walk right through.
Absolutely true. Yeah, once you realize that, you realize that a lot of the dungeon that you think is closed off is actually quite a bit more open. There's a fun application of that in Ganon's Tower, actually, where during the climb, there's a certain area where you climb up some stairs, and then if you immediately look to the right and do a wall bonk, you'll bonk over a fire snake and into its body and not get hurt by it. You can just keep walking left.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny bit of speed tech.
Yeah, and I mean, there are fire snakes all over the place in Link to the Past, so just knowing that helps a whole lot, because then you can just walk through fire snakes that typically you try to avoid. Catfish, what do you got for us?
Big 20.
Big 20.
Big 20.
And you know what, chat? I would like to play a game with you. The only person who can go through GT right now and find the big key is Professor Renderer. So when Professor Renderer actually goes into GT, I'd like to play the GT Big Keep guessing game.
I can get behind that.
Unless Renderer also has his keys randomized, then obviously we can't play that game.
You know, I'm looking at the tracker here, just taking a gander to see how many checks there are in certain dungeons, and I'm noticing something a little bit terrifying. There is a 20-item Thieves Town in Exit World.
Oh my!
Actually, he's got a lot of fat stack dungeons. Looks like I think that Swamp Palace is 15 checks. Pod is 14, although that's not really too far off of your average. Looking at that information can really give you a lot of interesting data about how long you should expect to stay inside of any given dungeon. Looks like Agate Tower has 18 checks in X's world, but only 2 in Professor's. Although that makes some sense because Professor is using standard door shuffle, so there's nothing untoward happening.
Right.
Still, a 20-check Thieves Town. Oof.
So what do you think is in Thieves Town? I don't know if you're actually looking at the spoiler log and you know it's a Thieves Town, but what do you think is in there that could warrant 20 checks? Do you think it's GT? Do you think it's like 3 or 4 dungeons all mixed in?
You know, I tend to avoid looking at the spoiler log unless something has really gone awry, but I'd like to think that it's just a whole smorgasbord of dungeons waiting to ambush our player.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see a cross-door seed like this, where you start in one dungeon and you go through every single dungeon before you're able to leave. xLive's having a hard time with the moth getting a fairy revival.
Really, who doesn't have a hard time with that moth? Like, if you just don't have the right items, that thing can be a real pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, definitely. If you run out of magic and you're sitting on Fire Sword, which is exactly what xLives is doing right now, and not to mention, you do damage at the wrong time, that moth actually does not actually take damage. Yeah, things turn bad quick.
If any spike in the entire room is intersecting with that moth when you hit it, it will not take damage. And there's a lot of spikes in that room.
See, I thought it was only the spikes that move. Is it actually every single spike?
It's actually every single spike.
That is terrible.
It's brutal. Yeah. Thankfully, it doesn't count for like the wings. It's only the body. If there's a spike touching the purple body, it won't get hurt. It's nasty. Yeah, we bring up a lot of talk about the glitches in this game and about all the, little funny, weird quirks and the way things are broken and how Link to the Past is a perfectly balanced game with no exploits. But let's be clear, we play on 1.0, right? They patched this game several times after this. We just choose to use the broken one. So we really
and for good reason.
And on when we complain about it.
Yeah, and for good reason, because this game is a lot more fun with the glitches in it, if you ask me.
I think it's a lot more fun in this context with glitches. I think if I was just going to sit down and casually play it, I would prefer to play like 1.2,
I also want to say that a lot of the stuff that we do, and what I mean by that is the people who go through the code and create these randomizers, is only possible on the 1.0 version. Like, even if you had the 1.1 or the 1.2 versions, because of how they're patched most of this would not be possible.
Yeah, exactly. The 1.0 ROM is what is used as the base for the Delta patch. And so if you were to apply that patch to a patch ROM, or I should say if you were trying to apply our patch to a 1.1 or a 1.2 version ROM, it wouldn't work because the binary data that is being compared against is not the same. And so you would end up with broken ROMs. They just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
They might launch and they might start, but you would not get far.
Right. Yeah, and that's, like you said, a little bit to do with the fact that the way that the code's been written is specifically for the 1.0 ROM. But I'm saying, even if we had someone go through and get a 1.1 or a 1.2 and create their own patch, not even one that is already out, and try to get it to work, I believe it would still end up with the same result, is you would not get a very working game.
Oh dear. I've just found something in the spoiler log.
Oh boy.
That was pointed out to me by Berserker in chat.
Oh, and Berserker letting me know that if you wrote your own code for 1.1 or 1.2, you could make it work. I wonder how that would look if we had a 1.1 or a 1.2 randomizer versus the 1.0.
It simply wouldn't have the same glitches that 1.0 does. So you wouldn't be able to water walk, and you wouldn't be able to, use the little mirror glitch to get through blocks, that kind of thing.
Well, okay, technically in 1.0, you can't water walk either. That's something that is enabled by, in the vanilla game, if you try to jump into water on the same frame that you are transitioning, and then you take damage while you're water walking, it will kill Link entirely. No, it doesn't kill Link. It puts him in a state where it can soft lock the game entirely. That was fixed by killing Link in the randomizer. Water walking doesn't work at all in 1.1, I believe, is of what the problem is.
Correct. Yeah, you can't water walk, you can't fake flipper, you can't use the mirror to get rid of blocks. A lot of the things that people depend upon glitch-wise simply don't happen in 1.1 or 1.2.
Oh, there's another good one. You can't item dash in the newer patches of Link to the Past.
Yeah, exactly. And to be very specific about the kick flipping and water walking thing in the randomizer, in 1.0, non-randomized, fake flippering and water walking do work, but if you get hit, it puts the game into an unplayable state. And what the randomizer did is adjusted that so that if you get hit, rather than locking the game, it kills Link.
Mm-hmm.
So you can still do them, but the consequences are reduced significantly by the randomizer, yeah.
Right. Nice hammer getting handed over to renderer by xlives. Just in time for some pegs.
Oh, and we were just mentioning it earlier, but the Master Sword Pedestal in Renderer's World has a Book of Medora on it.
That's an interesting place for a Book of Medora. I'm trying to think of... Oh yeah, that's kind of dirty, because if the doorway to Desert Palace goes anywhere, yeah, that book's gonna be required.
Just doing a little bit of excavation right here to see what the implications of that are. Let's see here.
So if you try to read a pedestal or the tablets without the book, you do get text. The text is, or at least in the vanilla game, you get text. And the text is, I would call it a wingdings font. It doesn't look like anything. It just kind of looks like nonsense. For those hardcore Hyrule enthusiasts, people have dubbed it the Hyrulean text. And you can find examples of Hyrulean font out there. So yes, it is a real text. It does exist. In the randomizer, on the other hand, I believe trying to read a tablet just plays the error sound as if you're using an item that you can't use in a location like the mirror, or trying to use the mushroom anywhere except for the witch house.
Okay, so it looks like there's not anything on any tablets that are locked behind that, well, actually,
Well, the real question is Desert Palace holding anything? Because don't forget, the front of Desert Palace can be locked by that book. And that entrance
but if
in a
you
door
have,
randomizer...
flute and a mirror, you can get around that.
Oh yeah, flute and mirror, true. All three of our players have the mirror.
Yes. Only one flute, though.
Yeah, only one flute, and that's on renderer.
So there are thankfully a couple ways to get into that. So we won't necessarily be locked out the required pendant just yet.
Yeah, and for those wondering, this is exactly why we haven't said a whole lot about why the players are locked by certain things or what they're looking for. It's because they're all doing different settings. They're all doing different things as far as what they're trying to do. It would be very impossible, even with a spoiler log, to say, oh, this person is locked by this, that, and the other thing. This is what they're looking for. And this is where they should be going.
There is an order of spheres that the logic kind of wants the players to go in, but that's always more of a suggestion than a rule. And especially with players, knowing glitches and sneaking around where they shouldn't be, a lot of that kind of gets thrown out the window as we go. So.
So let's do a quick review for those of you who might not be looking at the tracker right now and just focused on what each player is doing. So I'm going to actually do this by missing items. Professor Renderer is currently missing both boomerangs, the bug net, the cape, the shovel, the lamp, the magic powder, both canes, the ice rod, and bombos.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there that really needs to be found. And I have to wonder, he's been doing a lot of glitches and analogic stuff. Had he stayed in logic, considering that progression balancing is turned on for all three players, I'd like to think that he would have found at least one of those rods and probably red cane by now. The rest of our players are doing significantly better. X isn't really missing a whole lot. Book and flute. He's got the lamp. And that's about it. I mean, nothing else required. Just book and flute, and that's that. Maybe mitts. He doesn't have mitts yet. Those will be required at some point. But
yeah, and Luna is missing the book, the hammer, the flute, the flippers, both rangs, the magic cape, magic powder, red cane, ice rod, and bombos and ether medallions.
it looks like Ken has our answer in chat. What happens if you read the pedestal after your book is retrieved from a pedestal? And it will say, is this a paradox?
So to answer Link's question in chat, I believe there hasn't been an agreement as far as should all three runners finish the seed at the same time. I would like to say that the runners will finish on their own as needed. I don't believe that as soon as they meet their goal, they're going to forfeit. They'll actually go and kill Ganon and get the Triforce.
Oh yeah, of course. Each runner will go get their own credit screen, and if they do finish in a staggered pattern, what we'll do is we'll bring them in here for some interviews.
Definitely.
I think we're in good shape there. Looks like Luna picking up a pendant in here. I have to wonder why, because I did watch Luna earlier open the map and kind of sit there for a minute and kind of take stock of where she needs to go, so it's possible I just forgot.
I don't know without rewinding if Blind was holding an item or not. That might be the only reason Luna did it.
There were 3 bombs on Blind.
Yep, so that's an item. It's not a good item, but it's still an item.
Yeah. One of those good ethos things that we tend to have around here is players who are experienced will tend to just full clear everything because they know it's a multi-world. They don't want to accidentally leave something behind and have somebody get stuck because, you know, they were just go-moding a dungeon and really shouldn't have been at the time. That's kind of one of those things that multi-world has sort of introduced. By necessity, there's a bit of a more, not full clear, but a more complete examination of items in the game, or potential locations, because you don't want to be the person who accidentally causes somebody to be in DK mode for 30 minutes because you forgot to go check something, or more specifically in this case, because you decided to skip, you know, Agina or something like that. And we've seen that happen, you know, when the randomizer was new and everyone was still, or not the randomizer, but when multi-world was new and people were still used to, you know, randomizer only existing in kind of a racing context. That yeah, people would very frequently just not check certain things because they would never have checked them in a race context. So you had to get rid of all that muscle memory.
And if you ever want to get into your own multi-world shenanigans and you haven't yet, there are plenty of resources where you can do that. There's obviously Archipelago right here. You can join our Discord, and there's an async that happens. I want to say they reset it every month. I could be wrong. But you can steal one of the... What's that?
Once a month, yep.
Yep. So there's that. And then you could also join their async. Well, not also, but yeah, you could steal one of the seeds in the async and just do that to get used to multi-world and checking as many items as you can before you get into a BK mode. They have live multi-worlds, which you can join, and then there's just everyone in one channel hanging out, having fun. There's Link to the Past online Discord that you can join that also has multi-worlds and people asking for players all the time. There's SMZ3 multi-world Discords. There's multi-worlds all over the place. So if you want to join one, all you gotta do is look, because they're all over the place.
Yep, if you want any place to get started, just go ahead and throw an exclamation mark Discord in the chat. That'll give you the link to where you need to go. By that same token, if you're curious to see what items everybody has, we do have a multi-tracker that is publicly available, so just use exclamation mark tracker in the chat to get the link to that. It's the same tracker that my co-commentator and I are using to keep tabs on all the items and checks everybody has done so far. So what do you think? Are we going to see a cape this game?
That's an interesting question. I don't want to. I think capes are out of the question here. I'm gonna put it out there. Capes are not in this seed.
It's really just more of amusing. I mean, nobody has yet had a need for a cape. as far as I know, there's nothing on any of the bumper ledges that are of extreme importance. So capes aren't necessary, sometimes convenient.
All right, chat. So let's do a quick update on this. Currently, Professor Renderer has checked a total of 138 locations out of 216. xlives has checked 95 locations out of 249. And Luna has checked 109 out of 216.
Yeah, it's never really a good story when the player with the most locations to take a look at has checked the fewest. But again, there was that long BK mode right in the middle. You know, so it's not really X's fault. I mean, if you can't do anything, you can't do anything. But I think at this point, all players know what their goals are, or have at least checked that sign. So, proper expectations have been placed. I've never seen blue cane used in that room before.
Definitely interesting to be able to get through those rooms.
Hey, anything that works, you know?
I think I might try doing across doors with universal keys, so that way I can have the keys and be able to use them wherever I want.
Yeah, that can come in really handy, especially because a lot of times what can happen is you'll walk into a room inside of a dungeon, and the door that you come out of will close behind you and just be locked with a key. And you can find a lot of things where, like, something that used to be a bombable wall is now a key door, you know? And so just having access to all those keys really does help out a lot in terms of just exploring a dungeon and making sure you cleared it all.
Yeah, and I know one of the other things that can happen is a door can turn into a bombable wall door.
Yes.
Or vice versa, a bombable wall door could turn into a regular door.
Yeah, all the transitions that you think you're used to aren't necessarily there. And funny thing too sometimes is that you're those times when a door, you know, is transformed into a bombable wall, it's not always the archway kind of bomb that has a bunch of different cracks and everything. It can just be one of those little single cracks that you can't usually bomb.
I know one thing that is in these dungeons that xlives is currently struggling with at this point, and maybe you can help me dissect this a little bit, is the peg switches, the colored peg switches that can go from red to blue back to red.
Well, I mean, depends on what your question about those are. So long as you don't, you know, mirror or die, those pegs should remain the same.
Okay, so if you find a switch, if you find a switch anywhere in a dungeon, it doesn't matter what color it is, it will still be switched later on in that same dungeon.
Yes. Yeah, so if like the room on the left is, say, Swamp Palace and the room on the right is Pod, if you flip the switch on the left, it'll be flipped on the right. Yeah.
But you're saying if you die, mirror, or leave, it will reset back to a default state?
Yes, back to the default state, yes. Whatever the default state is for that dungeon, which I'm actually not sure how that's decided. Because some or you know what? Actually, I think every dungeon defaults to blue being active first. Now that I think about it. So that actually isn't a problem. But yeah, and that's the same. That same is true even if you don't have door shuffle. If you mirror, leave, or die, the switches get reset. So that's not unique behavior to doors. This room in Swamp Palace here that Professor is going through, I always get hit in that room. Unless I'm going very, very slow, I just still haven't found the way to just walk right up north and not get shot. There's always that turret doing me in. here's another interesting question for you. Do you think we'll see a red boomerang? Just another one of those items that nobody has.
Yeah, red ring would be really nice for some of GT. Obviously, you can get around some of the things in GT with a red cane, but 2 of our 3 players don't have a red cane either. So, yeah, I mean, outside of bomb strats to get through GT, ugh.
Yeah, I can actually tell you that one of those red boomerangs is locked behind the Pedestal in Renderer's World because it is on a tablet.
Oh, and let's shout out to another little glitch play here. Renderer's doing, or just did, I should say, a bomb jump into a, we call it diver down. But some people, and I got to agree with them, are wanting to call it the holy diver.
Why holy diver?
So if you've ever heard of Dio, the band,
I have indeed.
they have a song named Holy Diver.
Okay.
That's all.
Fair enough. I mean, we
It
call the
wasn't-
bullfrog Jeremiah because Joy to the World, so I mean, there's precedent. Are you familiar
Yeah.
with that song, Joy to the World?
I am not, actually.
Oh yeah, okay, well, a little bit of lesson here, because somebody actually didn't know why the bullfrog is called Jeremiah the other day, and I got to explain it to him. So there is a song called Joy to the World, which I know for a fact that you have heard it in your life. You might not know that you've heard it, but you've definitely heard it. The lyrics are pretty simple: joy to the world, joy to the fishes in the deep blue sea, joy to you and me, right? Stuff like that.
Yep,
But
yep, yep.
it starts off very differently. The lyrics to that song say, Jeremiah was a bullfrog. He was a good friend of mine. I never understood a single word he said, but I helped him drink his wine, and he always had a mighty fine wine. And so because Jeremiah is a bullfrog, and we rescue a bullfrog in this game, well, that's why we call him Jeremiah.
Nice.
Because, frankly, nobody could think of any other named bullfrogs anywhere.
Right.
And it stuck. Because it's a good song.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Was I right, by the way, once I said some of those lyrics? Were you like, oh, I have heard that?
Yeah, I knew which song you were referring to.
Okay, alright. Yeah, no, it was just some teenager. Just like, why are they called Jeremiah? I'm like, oh, you ever heard this song? I'm like, no. I'm like, oh, well, here it is. Nothing makes you feel quite as old as having to explain the, like, you know, common knowledge references from growing up.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I had to do that earlier today, actually, right before this race.
Good times.
Yeah, while we were prepping for the race, the racers were asking about which seed number they were going to be running, and they rattled off some seed number, and I'm like, oh no, it's not that seed number, it's 8675309.
Oh,
And apparently none of the runners had heard of Tommy Two-Tone, so I had to explain it.
poor Jenny. Forgotten in her old age.
But
It's always a fun one when you have a Master Sword and you have to fight down targets like this. Like, it's not the worst
Luna's-
thing ever, but I've seen people who will switch out to the hammer
mhm.
every time instead of just using the Master Sword, and I'm not sure why. Like, it's not faster. Unless you have,
so-
like, you know, quarter speed menus.
Luna has found out how many crystals are required to get into GT now, and it is 7
It
to
is
get through
7.
that door.
It is rough.
Yep, that is very rough. Oh, and I'm sure chat we've been talking about a bunch of different options in Archipelago, and in Link Randomizer in general. I think the one that we haven't mentioned yet, and chat probably has heard of it, is what's considered a mystery seed. A mystery seed is taking all the options in the randomizer and making it so that any of those options can happen at any point in the way that the seed is rolled. So for example, you could have inverted open and standard openings all be equally weighted so that each one of them can happen in any point of rolling a seed. So you don't actually know you're going to have inverted until you start playing the game.
True. And if you're looking for an even more deadly advancement upon that, by the way, you'll see here Luna bombing through a wall that is normally an open door. If you're looking for an even further advancement upon a mystery seed, we generate a daily game in Archipelago's Discord, every day. And one of those games is entitled Agina Take the Wheel, in which AginaBot will generate a YAML which has an equal chance of literally every option, no matter how cruel and unusual, and just generate a game for you, and wish you luck. So that your standard mystery will avoid doing things like swordless and, things like, what does it avoid typically? I think inverted is usually not on there. I want to say that like hard item pool and enemy shuffle and that kind of thing aren't on there. Agina Take the Wheel puts an equal chance of absolutely everything. If you play one of those seeds, you are choosing to suffer. But people do occasionally pick them up. I occasionally see a post in the Daily Games channel about somebody who grabbed one of those seeds and somehow managed to make it through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to say that the default options of a mystery, while not completely a mystery, because there are default options, but for example, you can get entrance randomizer as one of your mystery parts. You can have any amount of crystals on Ganon and in the tower. I believe it is any item logic. So your item logic could be normal, it could be hard, it could be expert. Your item location logic could be the same thing. Your item availability logic could be the same thing. I don't think that there's really much else that gets changed, like you said. Like you said, I don't believe inverted can be included, but obviously standard and open can both be included.
We have found a red boomerang. Professor Renderer has located one.
Nice. So let's make a prediction, chat. Who do you think is going to be the first person to get to Ganon? We're gonna make this a race.
But it's not a race. How do you make it a race if it's not a race?
Easy. Whoever gets to Ganon first wins. It's a race.
But what if the seed says that somebody has to get to Ganon last, and they never had a chance? X finding a flute underneath a pot.
Yeah, I mean, flutes nowadays are not really appreciated, so people just throw them under pots.
Listen, Swag Duck would like to have a word with all of them.
Do you think we're going to be activating the flute today?
I think there's a square on a bingo card about that somewhere. Do you know there are at least 3 different flute songs?
At least 3 different... I'm sorry, I missed that.
There are at least 3 different flute songs.
Interesting, I did not know that.
Yeah, there's the traditional Hyrule Anthem, otherwise known as Duck of Swag. Yeah, hang on, let me pull up their names here. Hang on, it's in my Dropbox. Give me a second. We'll get back to it. We'll come back to it.
Sure thing, boss. All right, so on Luna's screen, we see that one pendant and one crystal has been collected. I believe Professor Renderer has collected quite a bit more than that, and has a fast Ganon because Professor Renderer is in GT already.
All right, I have retrieved the data.
All right, lay it on me.
Yeah, so the first one is lovingly known as the Hyrule National Anthem. It is also called Duck of Swag. The second one is called the Quacking Duck, which is my personal favorite because it ends in an incredible pun. And then the final one is called Bottle O' Goo, and that one was actually written by Malmo, who some of you may know. I do not know who wrote the first two.
So, for those of you watching the tracker right now, there really isn't a whole lot missing. I mean, Cape is nowhere to be found. I mean, Cape doesn't exist in this seed. We only have one book. We have one of the red rings. We have both of the blue rings. So we have rings all around. Luna has a bug net. The other players do not. Yeah, I mean, unless Ice Rod is required for Turtle Rock by Renderer and Leka, or Luna for that matter, those are done. Let's see, full clears. We have full clears of Hyrule Castle. Aga Tower is got Nagam Nag on Luna's side. Has not been touched by the other two players. Eastern Palace has been full cleared by everyone except for Luna. The Desert Palace has been full cleared by Professor Renderer and not touched by the other two players. Yeah, lots of good stuff in here.
Yep, it looks like all players have full cleared Skull Woods. Just taking a look at the numbers kind of across the board, one thing that I'm noticing is, let me just confirm this before I say it out loud. Yeah, it looks like nobody has touched Ice Palace, nobody has touched Misery Mire, nobody has touched Turtle Rock. Only one player has checked out GT. Yeah, it looks like still the person with the least number of checks is X, followed with 111, followed by Luna at 127, and then finally Renderer at 168. And those are all just dictated by the logic, like whether you're in DK mode or whether you're just stuck behind something, or whether the places you have access to just don't have a lot of items in them to check. So I'm still looking forward to see what's inside of X's 20 count Thieves Town though.
Dude, that anti-fairy on Professor Renderer's screen was giving them good heck.
Despite being the only enemy in the game that you can always be absolutely sure where they will be 5 seconds from now, you get hit by them all the time. Mm-hmm. They're just so good at hitting you.
I gotta imagine that's the enemy that gets you the most on a one-hit KO seed.
I think you might be right.
So yeah, speaking of other really silly, difficult settings, you can set up Link to the Past to make it so that everything in the game will kill you in one hit.
Absolutely true.
There's another setting that I've seen in YAMLs that I've been kind of curious to explore. It's the timer setting.
Oh yes. So that's kind of an old setting that's been there it predates Archipelago for sure, and it's... Ooh, yeah, that was in... It was definitely in Vanta's. It's been there for a long time. The timer modes, what they do is they put a timer on your screen, and then certain things happen when that timer expires. So it also adds items to the game. Red, green. Oh, nice triple by Renderer right there on that Aga 2 finish. So they add items to the game, red, green, and blue timers. Green and blue add time to your timer, red takes it away. And depending on what timer setting you get, they have different behaviors. So if you run out of time, sometimes it's an Oko timer, one-hit KO timer. What that means is you are safe to play the game normally until the timer runs out, and then it turns on one-hit KO mode where everything kills you one hit from that point on. There are also certain modes that say when the timer runs out, you lose the game. Now that's not really implemented in any way. If the timer runs out, you can still keep playing and win, but you lost because you didn't do it fast enough. Yeah, they're an interesting little thing. I really don't see people use them very much. Honestly, I don't personally think they have a lot of value to them. But they are certainly interesting. I can see timed Oko being used here and there, but generally, most people, I think, don't really care much about it. If you're going to play with Oko, you just turn on Oko. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There are a couple more options to that, I think, but I'd have to go look at a YAML file to remember what they are.
Right. All right, so Farrak, I have a question for you.
Hit me.
If you could add any randomizer to Archipelago right now, what one would it be?
Jurassic Park for the Super Nintendo, the first one. I've thought about this.
I didn't know that had a randomizer.
It doesn't have a randomizer. I've actually had some conversations about this with a couple people about what I would need to do to actually make it a randomizer. Because here's the thing, that game is an adventure game. You have to go to various places to pick up some key cards that let you gain access to new places, and inside of those places you find more key cards, you find certain weapons, you find certain items that let you to advance through the game and eventually get out. Now, it's not a super long game. I think there are something like 20 to 30 total items throughout Jurassic Park that are necessary, but there's a lot of travel time in there. And so I think it would actually be kind of an interesting little side note to have. So that would be very fun. The other one that jumps to mind is Dark Souls. I would love to see Dark Souls implemented. But again, that's I think I'm maybe one of a minority who want to see that implemented into Archipelago, and so I'm probably going to have to do some work on that one myself.
Sure. There are two that I can think of off the top of my head that I would love to throw in. The first one is the Ori 2 randomizer, Ori Will and the Wisps. I think that would be a very cool randomizer to throw in this. And then another one, if it ever got a randomizer, would be Carrion.
Interesting. I almost bought that game because it looked interesting, and then I forgot about it. But yeah, that game does look cool.
Yeah, so for anyone who hasn't played Carrion, it's a Metroidvania where you play as the villain.
Yeah, you're the monster.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The premise of this is that you are a monster who is like experimenting or being experimented on in like a laboratory or something, and then you break out and escape. And then you just take vengeance on the entire laboratory staff.
Yeah, basically. And along the way, you're gaining new abilities that unlock new areas. So it is very Metroidvania, where you get more and more areas to explore. You get harder and harder enemies that you run into that you need to figure out new ways to kill with the new abilities that you've just gotten or gotten in the past. Yeah, I think that would be a very cool randomizer if it could be done.
Honestly, I really think that... We just saw that double Stalfos kill by Professor Render that I was talking about earlier. Yeah, I really think that Archipelago is a great project to get people started in programming, because there's a lot of potential here. We have a lot of people who know a lot of different programming languages, but you know, we don't know every game, and we don't know all the intricacies of everything. But we do have a lot of people who want to learn, and a lot of people who are interested and have cool ideas. And so I think as a launching off point, if you want to learn how to do some programming, like making a randomizer and then potentially adding it into Archipelago could be a really great way to get started learning how to use the language of choice that you've decided to learn. One of the biggest problems when I occasionally teach people how to code that they have is they have a lack of direction. They don't know what they're making. It's hard for them to want to wrap their head around all this stuff. Ice Rod, found by Leka, a lot of people, you don't really have a direction. They don't know what they're going to work on. It's hard to see tangibly what can I do with this cool new code. Archipelago is a great way. Making a randomizer in general is a great way to have some visible, tangible progress for what you're learning.
Sure. And I think the other roadblock that you could run into is where games already have randomizers. So, for example, Ori 2 already has a randomizer. So it turns into, okay, how do you go to the people who are developing the randomizer and saying, hey, I know you're working on this already. Can I take your code that you're working on and use it in this other project that's being worked on?
I think it's interesting that you asked that question. I'm glad that you did bring it up, because I think there's a fundamental shift in the way that you ask that question that's very important. So you asked it as, hey, can I take your code and use it in this other thing? That's not what we want to do. We don't want to take anybody's code. We're not out here to grab and whatever. We want to integrate. We want those communities to be part of our community. And those games that we want to integrate, we like that. We wouldn't want to integrate a game that we didn't think was really cool. And so there's a really good chance a huge chunk of our community would also then become interested in and start learning that randomizer. When we started first working on getting Hollow Knight implemented into Archipelago, we had a conversation with those developers about how we could work together to do that. And a lot of our community moved over to Hollow Knight and started learning how to play that randomizer and having a great time there. It's not it can only exist in one place and you have to take your stuff to do it. It's, hey, how can we work together to make what you have and what we have work together to be even cooler, right?
Right.
Does that make sense? It's a fundamental shift in how you ask that question.
That is very true. Yeah, and I think one of the randomizers that a lot of people are looking forward to / looking to have integrated at some point would be the one that Total is working on, the Super Metroid Link to the Past combo randomizer.
I agree. I think that could be a lot of fun. I think for the time being, however, and this is nothing against Super Metroid. I love Super Metroid to death. Nintendo has just been very protective of its IP over the years. And when you start, working with randomizers and that kind of thing, and we get pretty in-depth with the code of the randomizer that we're working with for that game. Nintendo, like I said, very protective of their IPs. In fact, just recently, I think a day or two ago, Nintendo issued I want to say a DMCA, maybe? Or something like that. I saw something in some little blurb that I read, but if you look at some of our most recent pushes of code, they reflect that we can't use the Link sprite file anymore because it's copyrighted by Nintendo. So, we're working with different ways to avoid that problem and not, have any, Nintendo proprietary stuff in the code. And so I mention all this because it's difficult to be targeted for infringing on Nintendo copyright. if we also do a ton of other things, so like Factorio and Minecraft and Hollow Knight and all those things together. You bring that to court, and it's very, very difficult to say, look, they've stolen Nintendo IP, when you can say, well, look at all this other stuff too. Like, we're not stealing anything. We're not improperly using it. Everything is accurately licensed. All that stuff. So I think just for the time being, we're working on adding other non-Nintendo things so that we become less of a target for Nintendo. Whether or not Nintendo has a case against us is immaterial. It's more about
bringing attention to it. And you're right, because there are projects that were worked on that Nintendo has taken down. Some of the more famous examples, Pokemon Uranium, AM2R, those are the two big ones I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, Nintendo came down hard on those projects. And like I said, not just us, but everybody who's ever worked on, ALttP randomizer stuff, has taken pretty good care to not distribute Nintendo IP. That's not something that anybody could or should even want to do.
Right, and that is a requisite of playing this randomizer. If you're kind of looking into it for the first time, is one of the requisites is that you have your own version of Link to the Past that you can download to your computer with special hardware, and then use that download to then roll a seed. It requires having a pre-existing ROM file that's taken from the cartridge.
Yeah, exactly. You need to legally dump it from the Japanese 1.0 ROM that you own. I keep mine right over here on a stack of graph paper, actually. Cool looking thing, too. I love the box art on it. But it's really nifty. Although I am a little bit curious, this Link is holding the Master Sword and it's also in the pedestal behind him, so continuity questions aside. I do love the box art for it. It is really cool looking.
Didn't you know that Link to the Past is the one that caused the continuity splitting, not Ocarina of Time?
What's an ocarina? Is that like a Lord of the Rings musical instrument?
Yes.
Okay. Sweet.
I don't know if you're actually seriously asking that question.
I always get people on that one too. Because, I love Ocarina of Time. What's an ocarina? I played Ocarina of Time. One of them's a flute, one of them's a bagpipe. Oh man, we see a lot of X over here doing some fast movement on the ground. If you're curious how that works, basically what you do is you find some stairs, and then you either tap your boots really quickly, or you swing a sword, or you tap a hook shot and a little button combination, a couple items at the same time. Tricks the game into thinking that you're actually always moving at boot speed, and so you can just walk around at the speed of sound, which is what's going on there.
And we haven't mentioned yet, so Renderer is actually in BK mode, as you can see on the screen. This is not free advertising. This is just called BK mode.
Yeah. Unfortunate situation to be in. Nobody wants to sit there and do nothing.
And for those of you who are hearing BK mode and seeing that image on the screen and wondering, well, why in the world are we showing an image of a Burger King Whopper while not doing anything? So I don't know the full story of how it came about, but I do know basically what had happened is one of these multi-worlds was happening, and I believe it was happening live. One of the players got to a point where they literally couldn't do anything else in the game. They stopped, they put down their controller, and they said, you know what? I'm going to go get Burger King. And they left. They literally left and got in their car, drove to Burger King, grabbed, whatever food they were grabbing, came back, and then started playing the game again.
I actually do know the official story. You're pretty close. It was Spike Vegeta, and they were playing a Ocarina of Time multi-world. Otherwise, yeah, that's exactly what happened. He got stuck, went to Burger King, came back. There it is.
Orange in chat trying to get to the original lore, thinking it was actually a SMZ3 that Spiked Vegeta was playing. I don't know. To be honest.
No, that was an Ocarina of Time multi-world. One of the first ones. I love all the lore around that. Everybody's got a slightly different story about it. It's almost a legend.
Oh yeah, I mean, give it a couple more years and it will be a legend. It's gonna be right up there with how did the Chris Houlihan room actually get its name, which I actually do know the story to.
Yeah, that one's just documented history. But for those who don't know the story, in 1990, when Nintendo was developing Link to the Past, and Nintendo Power Magazine was at the height of its popularity, Nintendo held a contest in Nintendo Power Magazine for somebody to get their name in the next Zelda game. And somebody named Chris Houlihan won the contest, and they put him in the game inside the Houlihan room. So in the vanilla Link to the Past game, if you access the Houlihan room, that little hint tile in there will have a little message saying Chris Houlihan was here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's Houlihan doing now? Where's Chris Houlihan today?
Yeah, we need to get Chris Houlihan to come to an AGDQ or something.
Oh man, get him on one of these showcases. Have an interview.
That would be a pretty epic commentary right there. Have Chris Houlihan in the booth with us, just doing a commentary on a ridiculous Link to the Past randomizer and getting his opinion on like the fact that that room is synonymous with his name and that everyone now today knows the legend and still refers to it on a very, I wouldn't call it daily basis, but often basis.
I'm trying to think about how often I think about the Houlihan room, and I absolutely Houlihan every time I play a Link to the Past randomizer. So I mean, several times a week at least.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's another secret in another game that did the same thing to a name that made it just synonymous with that game.
Yeah, you know, I mean, Konami Code maybe, but that's not exactly somebody's name.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not one particular game.
I could think of a game that is synonymous with someone's name, but it's not in the same context.
No, yeah, any game that has like a celebrity appearance, right? Like Death Stranding or like Triple X with Vin Diesel or, you know, whatever else.
Oh no, I'm going even deeper than that. I'm going with the Ed Tobias reference. Please tell me you know who Ed Tobias is.
So I was dealing with more administrative things. Who is Anthem?
So Ed Tobias is a developer of Mortal Kombat.
All right, Mortal Kombat developer.
And if you did certain things in Mortal Kombat, you would meet a ninja named Noob Saibot, who is Ed Tobias backwards.
I like that. I mean, I guess Minecraft has Herobrine, but again, that's not really a real name.
Mm-hmm.
Or the name of a person, anyway. It is the name of an entity. Ooh, there is Renderer's Red Cane found in GT by Luna. That's a big one. That's got to get out of BK if nothing else does.
So what is Renderer waiting on right now to get out of BK mode? Well,
if I had to guess, I would say it would have been that Red Cane, which he did just receive. I could also probably take a guess at Ice Rod, as I believe Renderer was the one with the 7-7 goal. I can go double check that one. That's correct. Renderer is a 7-7 goal, so he will also be needing to kill a Cinaeth, so that's an Ice Rod hunt for somebody.
Yep.
But other than that, the rest of our players are in go mode. Luna doesn't have a flute, so there'd be no access to Mire, although, once again, that's not a 7 crystal requirement, so that isn't going to be necessary. It also looks like Luna still needs a Red Cane, although, once again, not a 7 crystal requirement, so might be able to get around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Renderer is going to be taking that Red Cane directly into Mire and clearing that out. And this is Renderer's last crystal, so this is go mode for Renderer.
All right. It turns out we did eventually get a cape. Luna found one. We do have a few hints outstanding. It looks like Luna is still looking for a flute. Nomad flute can be found in X World at the bottom of Super Bunny Cave.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, the hint still says that Luna's looking for a Cane of Sumaria, but oh, actually, that is accurate, yeah. And that can be found in Renderer's World at Turtle Rock Roller Room on the left. So there are still a couple of outstanding items preventing progression, I think. Just based on the fact that people hinted for them. It doesn't necessarily mean that they need them, but they could be curious about how long it would take to not need to do glitches or any other myriad of reasons.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that our players are constantly talking about. They're in a chat together. They're asking each other, okay, what do you need to finish? Is there certain things that you can do to get around certain things? Obviously, with the settings that we're playing right now, you know, makes things a little bit harder to get through certain areas, but otherwise...
Yeah, and you know, this late into the game, especially in multi-world, the conversation will be had, hey, will it be faster for you to just finish the game and forfeit me the item, or will it be faster for you to go camp, right? So here and there, that little conversation will transpire.
Sure. Yeah, and I believe that's another setting that you can set up in your settings file when you make these multi-worlds, is you can have it set up so that the items in your game automatically get sent to all other players in your multi-world when you finish. That's called forfeiting the items. You can also set it up so that you force yourself to go get those items regardless of what the other players are able to do.
Yeah, you're talking about forfeit mode automatic. Most players don't like that because, you know, they could be, especially when people start getting towards the end of the game, you know, you can be in the middle of fighting a boss, or you can be in the middle of trying to do a glitch or a trick, and receiving, you know, 20, 30, 40 items all back to back can really throw off your groove of what you're trying to do. I have personally lost boss fights because, you know, 30 items came through from a forfeit somewhere It happens. Most people don't really like automatic forfeit, but you will typically see goal forfeit used a lot. And what that means is that a player can, once they defeat Ganon, they can then choose to send all their items to the rest of the players. In fact, the way that we use the forfeiting mode, I think the word forfeit sort of does it injustice. It's really more of an item dump. It's, hey, here are the things that are left in my game that I didn't pick up before I finished it. Let me just send those out. It's not really a forfeit because you did win the game. You didn't forfeit.
Right. I like to think of it as you're forfeiting the items because you haven't gotten to get them, but you're still giving them to the player who needs them.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, we've been talking about different ways that you can get involved with the community, making your own multi-world, or going in and just playing the randomizer with these crazy settings on your own, or getting involved by writing code to games that you want to randomize. I mean, what about helping out the community in other ways, like, you know, being involved in the actual community Discord as a moderator, or being involved on the Twitch channel and getting things set up for the Twitch channel?
Are you multilingual? Can you speak more than one language? We would love to have your help translating the tutorials on our website into multiple different languages. We only have like 4 of them right now. There's a lot more than 4 languages. Please, help us. We would love to translate into more languages. Aside from just that, yeah, I mean, the showcase is always looking for more people to play, more people to commentate, more people to restream. Anybody who wants to help us out, shoot us a line. Go to the role request channel. We have a whole volunteering section inside of there. Tick the little reaction underneath the type of mentions you want to be notified about when we put out notifications for new translations or for new showcases or for anything that we're doing. Yeah, there's tons of ways for you to get involved with this. And if there's something that you'd like to do that we're not doing, man, ask us about it. We'd probably love to get it going.
And there you go. So it looks like xlivesforever has 2 more crystals to get. And Luna is still going through and completing dungeons. Renderer is on the last dungeon, actually fighting the last boss right now. So this is going to turn into an answer for those of you who asked it earlier. Is Renderer just going to go and finish and forfeit the items over to the other players? Or is Renderer going to keep playing until the other players are ready to finish?
And of course, Renderer takes down the itty bitty bitty committee with no problem whatsoever. Silver arrows makes that fight trivial. Really trying to get that name to catch on, by the way. Looks like we have X heading over to the pyramid. I'm not sure if this is about to be a completion or if he's just checking out the goal. We'll know here soon.
Yep, and it looks like Renderer is also going up to the pyramid. So I'm betting we're going straight in.
Looks like X is going in for the pig fight.
Yep, so this is going to be 2 players fighting the pig, with Luna the only one left to actually finish their goals and get her items that she needs in order to kill the pig.
Absolutely, and I would just like to say here that during this Ganon fight, absolutely nothing could possibly go wrong for any reason. We wouldn't want
Gotta
this
curse.
game to end too quickly. Might as well tempt the universe.
Yeah, you're definitely not wrong.
I see this tactic used a lot, where people will like dash into Ganon, try to get some more hits in a little bit faster. And I I've never seen any numbers about it or anything, but I'm not personally like super convinced of its that it's any faster. To my untrained eye, it seems slower. We're gonna have a blue potion usage over here to be on the safe side.
Yeah, someone's going to need to go through, so it's called a practice hack. It is a version of Link to the Past 1.0 that's been patched to unlock all the items and put a timer on the screen so that you can actually time how long it takes to get through certain parts of the game. So I would think someone with a practice hack would have to fight Ganon with the dash tactic and then do the same thing, but do it with slashes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that a dash attack actually does less damage than your basic sword swing. So I'd be really interested to see what that times out to be, because if you can really get that many more attacks in, then yeah, that'd be really worth it. But I just have an inkling. But it's likely not as swift. All right, and we have Renderer killing the pig. Looks like we have X going at him over here with doing the silverless Ganons. Silvers were never acquired by X. That's right. So silverless Ganon, for those of you who don't know what's going on here, typically in Link to the Past, when you fight Ganon, what you need to do is slash him with your sword, and then he'll turn silver, and then you need to shoot him with a silver arrow, and that has to happen 4 times. But if you don't have silver arrows, it's still possible to defeat Ganon, but you need to hurt him in a tricky way. When Ganon shoots his fire bat, he will then, for a couple of seconds, not even a couple seconds, maybe 1 second or so, he'll blink, and then teleport away. And what you need to do is take your sword and sword spin such that your sword is touching his body as he finishes his blinking animation and begins to start teleporting. And doing that enough times will defeat Ganon. Kind of hoping that X has a little bit of backup magic here, because he still needs quite a few hits on the pig. Okay, looks like he does. All right.
And Luna's also fighting the pig, so that's going to be all 3 of our racers finishing up the siege at about the same time.
I mean, that's beautiful. I love to see that. Nice tight finish. Luna also does not have silvers, so we'll be seeing another silverless Ganon on that screen. Although that said, Luna does have the golden sword, so it should be significantly faster than when X does it, although by no means very fast. X also takes down the pig. Fantastic work. Ah, the smell of bacon.
And I'm just checking with our runners if they would like to join us for an interview at this point.
Oh, you know what? I made a mistake. I was corrected by chat. Thank you, Kippy. The dash does the same as the swing, but the poke does less damage than the dash. That makes a certain amount of sense. Looks like Luna has also done the torch glitch, and what that is if you light the torch on the left before Ganon puts out the torch on the right when he's in the process of darkening the room, the torch on the right will then never go out. And that just gives you kind of a lot more time to focus on knocking Ganon out.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, is it just me, or does it look like Luna has a tempered sword in-game? The tracker, however, claims that that is a golden sword.
I wonder if that's a in the YAML, that one of the things that you can change is how your sword and shield look. So you have a blue fire shield, so I'm guessing that red sword is just a sprite change.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that's definitely going to be a sword shuffle, a sword palette shuffle, I should say. And it looks like we're having some players come on in here. First to join us is X. How you feeling?
Dude, that was awesome.
Yeah. All right.
A lot of
So
fun.
there's a little stint of BK mode in the middle there, but looks like that got over pretty quick. In fact, I think all of our players were put into BK at some point over the course of this run.
Yeah. I saw the chat. That is a nice little warning to anybody wanting to play standard doors. You could get stuck for a
Yes,
while.
You can get stuck in standard doors if you're in a multi-world. Like I said, though, I mean, if you're willing to put that in your YAML, that's something that you sign up for. That could just be in your future. Renderer, how are you?
I'm fine.
Renderer, my first question to you is: did you kind of forget that Sarashla is a thing?
No.
Okay.
What was on his Sahasrahla?
Well, no. Behind Sarashla was Luna's bow.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In the closet, yeah, from the beginning.
I remember.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were gonna ask me about. Did you forget this was the Doors branch at me playing OWG? I was like, no, I didn't. I just wanted to do it anyway because why not?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's all good. I mean, nobody's gonna
Yeah.
force you to use any particular, YAML settings, short of, trying to get certain times to line up. But I feel like, the way that this game ended, all three Ganons getting killed within 3 minutes of each other, that's a pretty tight ending. I'm very happy with that. Luna, how you feeling
When I-
about this?
When I
Rough-
selected my YAML and I was told to make sure it was under 2.5 hours, I specifically made sure that I had an easier, 4 to 5 crystals so that it was, I knew I could make choices. And I also decided that I was going to use hints in this one. Normally I don't use hints, but just to kind of move things along when I felt like we needed to kind of move forward, not just sitting there opening every chest until the end. Normally I don't use hints, but it worked out for this.
Yeah, I mean the system is there because sometimes things get a little messy, and we like to be able to clean up that mess. So no judgment ever used because of any hints. So what do you guys think was the most out of the way item? Where did you have to go? What did you think was the most obnoxious one?
Well, it turned out with the hint system, there's a reason I cheated into Desert. The hint system told me the big key to Thieves Town was on the boss of Desert, and I wanted to finish the game. However, when I couldn't get easily into the boss of Desert, I decided to hint instead for the Titansmiths so that I could beat another dungeon. But it turned out my Titansmiths were in Thieves Town, so I had to do Thieves Town. Then it would have had me get the big key to Thieves Town or do another dungeon. So if I wanted to beat Thieves Town, I would have had to double dip it. That was kind of annoying. But other than that, not too much was out of the way for me.
That's good to hear. Luna, how about you?
About the hardest item to find, or most out
What
of
do
the
you
way.
think was the most out of the way item, the most inconvenient thing you had to go get?
It probably, since I only really had to go out of the way for one particular thing, that was a red cane in my swamp palace, which I needed a hammer for, which that took a while to get.
Yeah, her
And-
hammer was stuck in my Thieves Town as well.
Yeah. So I had to get the red cane from a dungeon that had a pendant when I needed crystals to actually complete the seed. So that's the only thing that made it out of the way, because even if I cleared the dungeon after, it didn't really advance me.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. Professor, I have a pressing question for you that I'm sure chat is burning to know the answer to. How does it feel to be the only player who didn't receive a bug net?
I don't really care, really. Just I don't really care. Just that, I mean, I figured, the bug net was it's like, oh hey, there's a bug net. You can do something with it. There's nothing else I can really do with it. I didn't have any safeties for myself, so there's
Sure.
that.
Yeah, fair enough. You also didn't get the magic powder, which is, in my opinion, the best safety item in the game. So I really feel
that
that's
it?
coming from sometimes. Just you need hearts, you don't have them. Get it.
Where was the powder at?
Offhand, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Did
we'd
we
have to
all
look up
do
through the
silverless
spoiler.
scanning?
I don't know if
No,
Renderer did.
no. Professor had silver arrows.
My silvers were in
silvers.
GT. I wasn't going back for
Because
those.
of course it's in GT. Because of course it's in GT.
Mm-hmm.
It's always in GT.
Quick question for Luna: was your item pool in hard item logic, so you didn't have access to silvers, or?
Yeah, I can tell because when I got a sword at one point, it turned according to X, it just turned into 20 rupees for me, which is hard item pool.
Get off my friggin' keyboard.
Yeah, we were wondering about that because you had your it looked like you also had your pallets swapped for your shield and your sword. So we were like, wait, this says you have a gold sword, but it looks like you have a tempered sword. So we were just kind of confused by that.
Yeah. But in the end, I had tempered sword going through the end, which definitely made getting a lot faster than if I had master.
Hmm.
Fair enough. Renderer, I did find your magic powder for you. That was actually inside of xliv's world, and that was at Turtle Rock at the Poke 1 key drop, which was at Misery Mire.
Oh. So essentially I was never gonna get it.
Yeah, it was somewhere buried deep.
When I got my Titan's mitts, I was trying to figure out which dungeon I could do to get my 5th crystal, and I looked at my map and I discovered that my Misery Mire was a pendant, so I didn't do it because I just needed a 5th crystal to get the game beat.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
running out of time. I think that bow in the beginning for Luna really held us back because I was in BK for a bit there.
Yeah, that was just the most unfortunate start I could have had, just requiring bow before I could even exit escape.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
mean,
feel like part
sometimes-
of that was also I feel like part of the reason that it ended up being the case was just because it for it being taking it too long was just mostly because of my OWG play. Because I figured, I may as well do it since even though it gets with the doors branch, it just defaults to just no glitches. So
What did you guys think was a good clutch part of the seed? Like, what were you guys like harping on about? We couldn't hear you, obviously.
I think most of the seed we were talking about all the different options that you can roll in this and really just promoting how Archipelago can work. I mean, there were obviously some really cool plays that you all did. Render really showing off overworld glitches throughout the seed. And you two throwing off all those cross door stuff that you can run into. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot of cool moments here and there, but for the most part, we were just talking about like how cool the actual randomizer is.
Yeah, I think there's also looking for the right word. I think there's also a bit of I guess you could say a desensitization to how cool some things are when we see people do them, because you play enough Link to the Past, you get to a point where you can play in a showcase and you can talk about everything that's possible to come up. And we've seen 100,000 icebreakers, and we've seen 100,000 diver downs, and we've seen all these glitches that you guys do where you fall through the wall and come out of a door on the other side of a room and then teleport away. Like, all that stuff looks really cool, but we've all seen it so many times that
Yeah.
it becomes desensitized. So it's not that none of you did any cool tricks, it's that, like, man, we're just video games, man. They've ruined our ability to recognize incredible things.
I feel like the best part of that, I think the best part of that really showed out for me was when I decided to super jump to get the cane for xlivs.
That cane got
in
me
Hype
out of
Cave.
BK.
Yeah, subsequently getting xlivs out of BK.
All right, perfect. Well,
Oh, I
guys,
did
thank
a
you so
glitch.
much.
I cheated.
You're become one of us.
All right.
One of us.
Well, players, thank you so much for hanging out with us and doing this showcase and coming in to talk afterwards. It has been a pleasure. We're going to go ahead and move you guys back to the alternate voice channel. Then we're going to close up here and head on out. But thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks
Do you
for
players
having
have
us.
any last shout outs you'd like to make?
Follow my fellow players; they're awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where can we find
shout-outs
you on
to-
Twitch or other places?
Mine's written on here on the Archipelago stream, xlivesforever on Twitch. The other guys are Professor Renderer and Luna Leka. We're all good streamers. We've all got we all have fun times. So yeah, follow everybody.
For me, it's just I typically same thing I always do. Shoutouts to restream and commentary, all that. I hope you enjoyed the MSU that I picked out, and the sprite. Then it was already been on the. It was the name of. It's been on the top left of the screen for most of the session because I figure I may as well like have something on the top of the screen to just show, hey, this is my sprite. This is cool. But yeah, that's all I gotta say.
Cool. Doing any shout outs?
I suppose this one's probably basic, but just the Archipelago in general, because, well, I got welcomed pretty open arms when I first joined. Not too long ago, honestly, like within the last couple months. So, glad to have been welcomed so much, and this group actually, revitalized me playing Randomizer as often as I have been now.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear. Yeah, we love new people around here. All right. Players, thank you so much for coming and joining us in the commentators booth. We're going to go ahead and move you back to the other voice channel, and then we'll close up here and see you on our way. So have an excellent night. Thank you so much. All right. Cinaeth, it has been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for
It has
with me.
been, yeah, it has been an absolute pleasure and a lot of fun. So definitely shout outs to my co-commentator here, Farrak, for everything that you do for Archipelago, everything that you do for this channel, everything that is done, period. I mean, what an honor, commentating with you.
Oh, I mean, I appreciate it, but it's not just me at the end of the day, too. I mean, there is a large team working on this all the time. Like I said, blood, sweat, tears, money, you name it. We pour our heart and soul into this thing. We want to see you guys have fun. So, it's not just me here. The whole admin team, we work hard to make this thing a possibility, and we're glad that you're all here having fun as a result of it. We probably wouldn't still be here if people weren't playing it and enjoying it, and just validating the work that we've done. And we'd love to see more people get involved and write some more code, take on some more responsibility, and help make the place cooler. And so thank you for volunteering to come out here and do this commentary with me, because otherwise I'd have been sitting here talking to the screen and telling horrible dad jokes all night, and they would have been great. So yeah, do you have any I guess I already asked you about shout outs, so I guess that's that. I'll make a couple of quick shout outs here. Shout outs to Tyler for doing the restreams right now that have been going on. Thank you for the organization as well from Tyler's end. Thank you to Berserker and Cinaeth and Kano Tyron, and I will never name everybody who has worked on this because there are just far too many people. But thank you so much. We're glad that you've hung out with us. We hope you have an excellent night, and we will catch you all on the flip side.